straight from New York City, up dirt early in the morning, Joshua Spodek. Please give the stage to Joshua and hopefully a dramatic intro to the rest of the day.
Hello, am I on?
You are on.
Good to see everybody. I'm glad to see everyone from so far away. I met Johan almost exactly a year ago on stage here in New York City, an event hosted by the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce. And he said, Josh, you have got to come to Smaka Pass Stockholm. And I learned about it and I said, I've got to go. As one of the few Americans who's not flying myself, he and his team, we worked together to try to figure out how I could sail there. And along the way, Paul Svensson said, if you can get here soon enough, we can do a pop-up restaurant. Everything was ready to go. Of course, the pandemic hit. And now I'm up here at 3 a.m. and you guys get to hang out with Johan and Daniela and Paul. So I'm full of envy for you guys. I think of what I'm missing every time that I'm running because I've switched from running to plogging. And so thank you for allowing me to speak in English because I just used up all my Swedish. So back here in New York, I host the Leadership in the Environment podcast, and it's getting really big. I lead leaders to share and act on their environmental values. And it's growing, it's becoming a TV series, there's a book in the works. And all of my environmental sustainability work, it began with food. So I've been challenging myself to go for a week. It began with me challenging myself, could I go for a week without buying any packaged food? When I first thought of it, I thought, this is not gonna be possible. But I also looked at the garbage that I produced and I thought, I have to take responsibility for this. Maybe government should change things, maybe corporations should change things, but I have to take responsibility for the garbage that I create. So I'm not at zero, but I made it 2.5 weeks that time and I've kept going. Actually, I've never done this before. This right here is all of the garbage that I produced since last December. So just about since the last time Johan and I saw each other, that was a year's worth of garbage. And a lot of people think it's very little. I think it's still a lot, so I'm trying to get lower. But that's where I am right now. Food being where I started from, I read a lot of books on food and sustainability and innovation and nutrition and things like that. Nearly every author that I come across, they struggle with how can they write about junk food, fast food, frankenfood, convenience food, ultra-processed food. They're always talking about something that they're trying to distinguish from food, but they can't help but use the word food because all these terms have the term food in them. You're probably familiar with Michael Pollan, who wrote, "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants." I wish I could look out and see if if everyone's familiar with that, but I hope people are familiar with that. So when he says eat food, what he means is eat food, what you and I think of as food, not food, but he doesn't give a name to the other thing. And this has been hitting me for a long time. It's difficult to talk about stuff that isn't food, but that we put in our mouths without using that term. Why does this matter? There's a lot of people who are, I would say, addicted to salt, sugar, fat, convenience. And they can point to people who are addicted to other things. And they can say, well, if you're addicted to alcohol or gambling, you don't have to do those things. But we have to face our problem every single day, and we just can't get out of it. Well, that's to say that would confuse thinking that something like broccoli is the same as Doritos, or that an apple is the same as Twinkie. But these things are not the same thing. No one would ever confuse, like if I finished a run and I was really thirsty and you handed me a liquid and it was wine, no one confuses alcohol with water, even though they look kind of similar, partly because the names aren't the same at all. And I realized that a term was missing. And when I told Johan about this, he said, Josh, talk about this. This is a really important term. This is a really nice, useful thing that it's very useful. And I found that when you use it, when you learn it, suddenly it clarifies many things about food. And so I offer you a new term, DOOF. DOOF is food backward, D-O-O-F. And I've been starting to use it here, and people have used it here. People are my guests, including, I don't know if you know the big names for me, Michael Greger from nutritionfacts.org, Dr. Joel Furman, Marion Nessel, also local people like the Brooklyn Borough President, Eric Adams, so he's a big politician here. And also most of my family and friends have started to use it. And I have to say, they come back and they tell me what I've found is that it clarifies a lot. I find that when I walk into a supermarket here, when I walk in, there's usually food in front of me on sale. There's apples and oranges and broccoli and cauliflower and what I call food. Nearly all the rest of the supermarket, nearly all the rest of it is doof, which is to say it's stuff that's packaged. Usually what makes doof and food? Doof, it's usually the pleasure of it is coming from salt, sugar, fat, or convenience. Oftentimes it's created by engineers, and the goal of it is to get you to want some and to get more. So if the main appeal or the pleasure of something comes from salt, sugar, fat, convenience, or is engineered, it's probably doof. Now, there's no hard and fast definition for me between food and doof. That is, there's always edge cases. For example, when I was a kid growing up, I thought orange juice was nutritious. And most people that I know today would consider orange juice not nutritious. They've taken away, there's no fiber in it, there's no, it's mostly nutritionally a lot like soda. So I would tend to put orange juice on the side of doof. My Italian friend, he loves olive oil that he gets very fresh. Now, I don't cook with refined oils, so I think of olive oil as still on doof, but he says it's food. So I'm not trying to say there's a hard and fast line between where food and doof is, but once you get that clarity, it's very difficult it's very easy rather to see what's food and what's doof. And so I put to you, a lot of you out there are people who are creating products for people to eat. Some of you, it's possible, are making doof and not food. I'm not sure, I can't say, but if it's you, if you're making something out there, search your heart. Is what your goal is it to elevate vegetables and fruit and for people to appreciate what they have, to love nature more? Then it's probably food. If you're really just doing it in order to make a buck, something like that, it's possibly you're making doof. So you have to search inside, because technology tends to augment what we do, what we have in our heart, what we want to do. And if our goal is to make something that people crave, something that people just want more of so that we can exit and have an IPO or something like that, it's possible we're making doof. And I hope we're not trying to do more of that. So if the term works for you, please use the term in good health. I use it to distinguish, and I hope that you do too. And I recommend trying to avoid maybe never eating doof again. The term, in my experience, helps clarify and distinguish. Another useful way of looking at it is that I distinguish between taste good and want more. And I want to illustrate that. When I eat into it, if I bite into an apple, I happen to have one here. When I bite into an apple, it tastes good and I want to eat more. So usually I'll have a second bite. It usually tastes good and I want to have more. And then if I keep eating it, at some point, I don't really want any more of it. Like, I've eaten 2 apples back to back, maybe a couple times in my life, but I don't think I've ever eaten 3 apples in a row. So the third apple would still taste just as good, but the want more goes away. Whereas if someone gives me a bag of chips, well, I wouldn't eat the doof now, but back when I would eat them, I'd eat one chip and I'd think, oh, this tastes good, I want more. I'd eat another chip, I'd say, this tastes good, I want more. But at a certain point, the want more stays, but the taste good starts going away. So that's the difference. Processed doof tends to be something that I keep wanting more, even if it stops tasting good. They engineer out the taste good part, and it's just want more. Also, I pick up a piece of garbage every day. This is a habit I've had for about 4 years. So every day I walk out, and even during the pandemic, or especially during the pandemic, I always make sure that I at least pick up one piece of litter. Almost all the litter that I pick up is doof. I don't think I've ever picked up something, a wrapper from food. It's always doof. If it came from McDonald's, if it came from Starbucks, if it came from Unilever or any multinational, it's almost certainly doof. But I came here, by the way, to talk about food, not doof. The term clarifies about food too. Doof separates. Food brings people together. I mean, few things in life I've found bring people together like fresh fruits and vegetables. And people who don't distinguish between doof and food, oftentimes it's like a horror show. Some people talking about what they want to eat. But when you take out doof and you know that what you have is food, it's an amazing thing. It brings people together and it connects, and it brings, to me, when you're just looking at food and vegetables, fruit, mushrooms, unpackaged, minimally processed, they bring joy. They bring connection. They bring community. And some people look at that as a constraint. What about, but I want to process things. In my experience, constraint breed creativity. Food is about sharing, joy, community, connection, and life, which I hope that the clarity of the term doof brings to you and helps clarify and augment. Now, I would love to talk about doof and food, really food forever, and about the joy, the community, and connection that these things bring, and how to elevate fresh fruits and vegetables. I would talk more about that forever if I want to, but I see, I look at Johan and I think he's ready for me to go to the next segment.
I could have you here speak forever and ever, but I think the term doof is absolutely, of course, mad. Of course, hashtag everything you see out there that's not food with doof, and we'll see this word take off like a rocket. And one of the things I just wanted to touch upon as well, the first time we met, you also spoke about all these constraints giving you joy.
Yes.
Actually, it wasn't a burden. It was joyful. Could you maybe say, what was your reaction after a while, having not flown or just eating, local stuff, healthy stuff?
Yeah, when I first challenged myself to avoid packaged food, I thought, but that's where the variety comes from. That's where the good stuff is, because I don't cook very well. And truth be told, at the beginning, I just had a lot of steamed vegetables for a while, but I didn't want to pollute and I did want to keep eating delicious. So I kept practicing. And as I did it, my variety in food got increased. And likewise with not flying, I thought for sure, day 366, I'll be on a flight, no question. I just challenged myself to go for not flying for a year. Within a couple of months, I found where I used to rely on an airplane to bring me someplace, to bring me adventure, to bring me cuisine, to bring me culture. Now I realized I had to create that myself. At first I thought I couldn't do it, but then I found I could create things more. I can create more adventure. I can create more cultural exchange. I can create more finding out different cuisines if I do it myself. So I had to take more responsibility, but I enabled myself to find these things. So now, I used to shop in supermarkets all the time, but now when I go to the farmer's market, I can't, if I go there, I bring my bag, and I'm always seeing things that I haven't seen for 10 months because I'm only buying stuff that's in season, fresh. And I cannot leave without whatever bag that I have completely filled with vegetables. And I love this stuff. It's really, when you're in one system before looking in from another perspective, you have a certain set of values and you think, well, I want it to be this way. I want it comfortable and I want convenience. I want to grow and I want things like that. But when you switch over to the other system, it's much more about enjoying what you have, not trying to grow all the time. It's more about less comfort and convenience and more meaning and purpose and value and what I can create and the satisfaction of doing things myself. And it's difficult to describe, but an amazing experience. Have I answered it? Because I could go on.
No. But I think, Josh, what you've done is you've given me essentially two words to my vocabulary that I'm so eternally grateful for. And the first one, of course, when we met the first time, was the joy. It's not a sacrifice. The next gen food system is joyful. The second one is, of course, the fantastic word of doof. And you, of course, as a thinker, activist, leadership coach, you will be back a little later on in the program to participate around these and other topics. But for now, Josh, thank you so much for sharing with us. And a big round of applause for Josh, please.
Johan, thank you. I wish I could be there in person.